Veterans, if you're in the midst of filing for a VA claim, or preparing a VA claim, or considering filing a VA claim, you have to understand that there are certain claims out there that the VA just legally cannot grant, especially if you write them this way. Now, 8 out of 10 veterans are doing at least one of these things, and I can tell you that here at VetClaims.AI, we've taken several vets from 20, 30, 40%, all the way up to 90 or 100% just by clearing up some of the things that we're going to mention in this video. So save yourself some time and let's dig in. All right, we're kicking this list off at number 10. I'm filing for exposure. Exposure to X, exposure to B, something along these lines, right? Now, it doesn't matter if you file for exposure to nuclear weapons, right? Truth be told, even if you've got like a 3rd head, a 5th nipple, the VA is not going to consider this. And you might ask yourself why. I'll just read it to you. You can't be rated for exposure itself. The VA rates diagnosed disabilities, so filings like burn pits, asbestos, Agent Orange, or PFAS with no condition is dead on arrival. You must claim the resulting conditions from these exposures and state that exposure was the context or the mechanism of wounding. So here's how to fix this. You file for the diagnosis that resulted from the exposure in the first place, right? So if it's asthma, if it's sinusitis, if it's certain cancers, whatever it may be, you will write asthma secondary to burn pit exposure, right? You will not write burn pit exposure and then asthma on a separate line, because burn pit exposure is not a claim, it's a mechanism of wounding. Let's keep going. And speaking of exposure, you're probably wondering why I sound like I do right now. And the answer to that is because someone decided that they should get on a plane with some variant of COVID-9000, right? And now here I am, sniffling, snuffleupagussing, just here trying to add value for you veterans. Leave it in! Forgive the congestion, and let's keep going. Now let's get into number 9. And this one's a big one, especially for Gulf War veterans, because it is the Gulf War illness. And something we're going to call a MUCMI, M-U-C-M-I. Now to tell you what that means, I had to pull it up. Medically unexplained chronic multi-symptom illness, right? Now ultimately we know now that the Gulf War syndrome is likely a result of sarin gas being leaked into the air. That being said, this led to many court cases and many disability hearings where eventually the VA had to concede that something called a MUCMI, but in order to make that happen, you do once again have to file for the actual disabilities themselves and with an attributable factor to Gulf War exposure. This is further strengthened by the fact that there's even a specific diagnostic code that the VA will use for Gulf War presumptive conditions. So for example, you don't want to write Gulf War syndrome or Gulf War exposures. What you want to write is IBS, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, and then in the second box you want to claim secondary to Gulf War syndrome or Gulf War exposures, right? That right there ties it together and connects the dots for that VA rater, and that's how you get the rating user. Leading off number 8 is another wrongly claimed exposure, and this one is PFAS, P-F-A-S. This is the firefighting foam that most military firefighters use. Once again, you're going to have to file for the actual disability that resulted from the exposure or the mechanism of wounding, and not the exposure itself. If you're a firefighter, you need to talk about your MOS, the duties, what your daily life consisted of, right? And your statement in support of the claim, that's going to be critical. And then if you've got disabilities that can be or are connected to PFAS exposure, then you need to claim that disability and say secondary to MOS exposures, right? Right now, as of October 2025, there is no presumptive list for PFAS or PFAS. You are going to have to actually connect the dots for the VA rater so that they can understand the rating that you actually deserve. Now, if you're a Vietnam vet, don't skip ahead. What's coming next will affect you 100%. All right, coming in at number 7, it's starting to get real heavy now. This one's going to shock almost all of you, and it might even make some of you mad. But at number 7, we're talking about mustard gas / Lewisite. Yeah, I didn't know it was called Lewisite either. But if you file these things with no official records, even if you can show I was stationed at a base that had it present, guess what? The VA is legally not allowed to concede your exposure just on your say-so alone, which is very interesting because the VA also has the benefit of the doubt rule. But there were so many Vietnam veterans that without proof of being stationed at a certain hilltop, landing zone, whatever it may be where Agent Orange was used or you were exposed to it, this can cause a massive issue. That's why in general, going to Vietnam alone is grounds enough for a veteran to have claimed Agent Orange exposure.
And on that note,
coming in at number 6 is Agent Orange, especially when you're filing for it from a place that is not conceded as a presumptive condition, right? Now, what do I mean there? There's a lot of big words. But for Agent Orange, the VA concedes that this long list of places, if you were there and you were there during these time frames, They just concede Agent Orange exposure. But there's many logistical hubs, there's many logistical routes, storage containers, storage facilities, etc., 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 that expose veterans to Agent Orange, but those locations are not on the presumptive list. Now, the big question is, what do you do and how do you fix that, right? Well, once again, we've already covered that you don't want to file for Agent Orange exposure itself. It's a mechanism of wounding. So you're going to file for the disability that's caused by it, and then put in the context secondary to this exposure, secondary to PACT Act. So ultimately what you need to do is be hunting down your unit records. You need to use the DoD listed site lists, and then you need to find any treatment injuries or events that you had post-service. If you truly lack these kind of statements or this kind of information, buddy statements can go a long way, right? If they were stationed with you, they can write a letter. If they have a picture, whatever it may be, any sort of buddy statement or expert testimony will be helpful in getting you the rating you deserve. Veterans, even the best VA claim can fall apart at the C&P exam. You might not know what symptoms the VA is using to rate properly. You might not know what verbiage the VA is looking for to understand how to rate your symptoms properly. And if all of this sounds confusing to you, I gotta tell you, all you have to do is book a call with VetClaims.AI. We have free consultations. We have a money-back guarantee if you do work with us. And I can promise you, we're not gonna take a percentage of your back pay or any of it at all. So hit us up here at VetClaims.AI. All right, we're coming up on the 50% mark in this video. Number 5, all you GWOT vets are probably guilty of this. I see it every single day, and that is saying, well, Tara will win my claim. Claiming Tara is not gonna help you out, right? It's just not. You don't claim it. It is a mechanism of wounding, right? You're starting to see a pattern here. These are some of the biggest logical missteps. How do we fix it? If you're talking about the Tara claims, well, then your answer is to file for the disability. Once again, it's been a pattern throughout this whole video. But the interesting thing about Tara is it kind of layers up there with the PACT Act, right? So PACT Act presumptives are also Tara presumptives, right? What are the things that qualify under Tara, for example? Well, air pollutants like burn pits, sand, dust, oil well fires, sulfur fires. Chemicals like pesticides and herbicides, depleted uranium. Contaminated water sources, that's something that's pretty relevant for a lot of military. Asbestos, industrial solvents. Now, if you're curious about more details on the PACT Act and what it really means for you, we've made an entire video doing a deep dive on this right over here. So click that link. Not here, here, right? Yeah, here, okay, right here. Number 4, we're getting warmer here, but we're gonna be talking about noise exposure claims without MOS context or audiology appointments. Literally just veterans claiming noise exposure, right? Thinking that it'll trigger a hearing test, thinking that it'll get them a hearing loss claim or a tinnitus claim. And truth be told, it doesn't. In fact, the VA just says, whatever, red X, don't care, denied, not a disability, right? You're talking about an exposure. Once again, is a mechanism of wounding. The noise exposure is the mechanism that wounded you to have tinnitus or hearing loss. That being said, tinnitus or hearing loss is the disability. Perhaps even Meniere's syndrome or vertigo, right? There's different things that can go into this, but in general, the principle remains the same. Stop claiming noise exposure and start claiming tinnitus. Start claiming hearing loss, right? And those are due to or be caused by noise exposure. Now, here's a big cheat code for every single one of you out there, right? For your tinnitus claim, which seems to be one of the biggest questions online, right? It's almost a free 10% rating is what a lot of people seem to think. There is a 1035 FAST list, a composite of every single rate, AFSC, MOS, job, whatever you want to call it, out there that is most likely exposed to high levels of noise. So stop claiming noise exposure and start claiming what came from the noise exposure. But what you need to consider next is, what about your loss of sleep? Sleep apnea is one of the most clean things ever, but veterans are messing it up every single day. So let's dig in. Number 3 is sleep apnea. Now, where do veterans go wrong with sleep apnea? Sleep apnea is the first thing on our list that you may have noticed where it's not a pattern mismatch. Sleep apnea isn't the pattern, the mechanism of wounding, it's the disability itself. So what do you have to do to get this crazy rating? You need to show up to the C&P exam with a sleep study on hand. Having that is half the battle. That gives you the positive diagnosis. Now the hard part is connecting it to service, which is where most veterans struggle, because almost none of us got sleep studies in service, right? If we were lacking sleep, it's because we went to bed at midnight and had PT at 5:30 in the morning, right? It wasn't because of sleep apnea, or at least not that we knew it. But for right now, at a high level, what I want you to understand is that there's tons of medical etiology connecting depression and mental health claims to sleep apnea. There's also a ton of medical etiology connecting weight gain to sleep apnea. And you might be asking yourself, well, how can weight gain help me with sleep apnea? How can I service connect that? Well, if you have multiple joint injuries, or you have depression, or you have something that makes you gain weight post-service, and then sleep apnea results from that, guess what you can do? You could use weight gain, or obesity, as the VA calls it, as an intermediary, right? So you can claim sleep apnea secondary to obesity, intermediate to depression. So we just covered how losing sleep could cause you to lose even more sleep if you don't file your claim properly. And that's number 2. Filing a joint, literally, right? And not like the fun kind that you can smoke on the weekend, but the kind that ultimately finds yourself wasting 6 months of your life with the VA. What do you think's gonna happen, bro? It's the government. They're not gonna do the deep dive for you. And I get it, you wanna believe that the VA said, we're gonna take care of you after service. No, bro. It's not going to happen. You're missing out on 90% of the claims for each of those body parts. With your knees alone, you can literally have instability, dislocation of the semilunar cartilage, painful range of motion, and limited range of motion. And you can even have partial removal of the patella, right? If they've had knee surgery, essentially. Those are 6 claims off the top of my head for one body part. And even better, that means it's not just 6, it's ultimately 12. Because you got a left knee and a right knee, hopefully, right? Unless you lost one of them, and that's a different rating and a different claim and a different story. But if you got both knees, right, that's potentially 12 claims between the 2 of them. And each one of those can have a bilateral factor. That's a multiplier that amps it up even more. For example, it'd take 2 10% ratings, and instead of having it be 10% and 10%, it would bring it to a 19%, right? I might have done the math wrong there, but the point is they add up, the VA minus 1. Somebody show, editors will put the correct math up there. It'll make sense. All that goes to say, you can't just file the joint. You gotta file the issues. Now we're gonna be talking about what could be the most detrimental and maybe the most commonly fudged up claim. The number 1 most fudged up claim is when veterans write pain or arthritis. And that's it. That's it. Trust me, I get it. I get it, right? I feel like I need WD-40 9 days out of 10. Right? But you can't do that. Why? Because the VA is just like, okay, cool, dude. Whatever. There's 4 facets I need you to consider, and I need you to write at least 1 sentence for each, right? So, this is the recipe. This is the secret recipe I'm giving you right here. It needs to be talking about how it affects your work life. Does it make you grumpy with coworkers? Does it make you an asshole? Number 2, how does it affect your love life, your romantic life, your ability to have relationships with your spouse? 3, family, right? Family and friends. How is this affecting your friendships? Are you isolating? Can you not pick up your kids? Can you not be the dad or mother that you want to be? Can you not go to crowded areas? Whatever it may be, talk about how it's affecting that. And then finally, we need to talk about how it affects you. What about the things that you're interested in? Right? What about the things you love doing? Whether that's playing rec league football or pool, whatever it may be, how is it affecting you? And if you take those 4 things and then you couple them with at least a few sentences on medical etiology connecting the issue to service or to service-connected exposure or service whatever, right? And you do that, that statement supporting your claim is going to be so powerful. So powerful. And you're going to get the rating you deserve. And if all of that sounds overwhelming or intimidating, I get it. And that's exactly why I built VetClaims.AI, to help veterans just like you and just like me get the rating we deserve so we can move on with our life and build the things we want to build. Whether that be businesses, relationships, both. Now, if you found this video helpful, my only ask is that you give us a like, give us a subscribe, and share this video to more veterans who might find it helpful too. My name is Lukas Simianer, I'm the CEO and founder of VetClaims.AI, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.